But listen to me. Listen to me. I know it's early, but it's an emergency. It's an emergency.
There have been rumors circulating that Remy Ma cheated.
Some Hollywood splits vanish before the morning news hits, but then there are those explosive divorces that refuse to lose their heat. This wasn't some hushed departure that slipped through the cracks of the internet. No, this fire ignited instantly and stayed burning in the public eye, forcing everyone to pay attention, even if they tried to look away. The crumbling of the union between Remy Ma and Papoose landed squarely in that second, more volatile group. What really should have stayed behind closed doors transformed into a whirlwind of public disorder. Subtle murmurs escalated into front-page news, viral videos began to flood our feeds, social media debates reached a fever pitch, and heavy allegations were tossed around, leaving the fan base feeling utterly lost and rattled. For the longest time, Remy and Papoose were viewed as the ultimate gold standard for devotion within the world of hip-hop. Their journey was never flawless, but it managed to withstand the kind of immense stress that would have crushed almost any other duo. Hard time behind bars, massive personal sacrifices, constant industry gossip, and painful years spent in separate zip codes, none of it could snap their bond. That is exactly why, when the very first accusations started to pop up, the majority of onlookers just brushed them off as fake news. In the beginning, the math simply didn't add up. After surviving a lifetime of obstacles side by side, the idea of a double cross felt completely impossible. Then, a specific turning point arrived that flipped the entire narrative upside down. Low-frequency chatter began to swirl about Remy being spotted out and about with a different man. This wasn't just some random face either. It was a younger figure known throughout the scene as Easy, often referred to as the block captain, a detail that immediately set off alarms. With Remy approaching the age of 45 and Easy being significantly her junior, the public met the news with massive doubt. However, the whispers didn't just die down, they actually intensified and became impossible to tune out. That is when Tasha K jumped into the mix and completely refocused the direction of the drama. Famous for fueling the flames of controversy, she hopped on a live stream and asserted that she possessed cold, hard evidence that this was far more than just a campfire story. From that second onward, the narrative took a much darker and more serious path. According to the claims she put forward, the era of Remy Ma and Papoose was already a thing of the past. She alleged that the core of the fallout was a secret romance involving Easy, the block captain. That one accusation catapulted the entire mess out of the comments section and directly into the heart of a full-blown scandal. This wasn't just some vague, cryptic poetry. She was adamant that her sources were airtight and that the quiet rumors people tried to ignore were actually based on a harsh reality. There were hints of leaked screenshots, compromising photos, and archived private DMs. Suddenly, the same supporters who were ready to go to war for Remy found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew. The vibe changed in an instant. What started as a he said, she said turned into something raw, chaotic, and far too intimate for the public to be witnessing. The chronological timing of it all only added to the emotional weight of the situation. Not long after those bombshell allegations went viral, official reports hit the press confirming that Remy Ma and Papoose had formally moved to end their marriage. For the fans who had followed their evolution for nearly 2 decades, that headline felt like a gut punch. This wasn't just another celebrity update to scroll past on a Tuesday afternoon. This felt like the absolute death of a cultural icon of love. Shortly after the filing, footage began to surface showing Remy looking genuinely distressed. In several clips, she appeared deeply pensive and physically exhausted, like a person who had finally reached the end of her rope. She opened up about those lonely nights spent in motels, the endless hours on the phone that led to no resolution, and the types of arguments that leave you feeling empty rather than understood. Even though she didn't point a finger at anyone specifically, her body language told the whole story. The foundation between them hadn't just chipped, it had shattered past the point of being fixed. While the heartbreak of the situation tugged at people's emotions, it was impossible to dismiss the gravity of the alleged unfaithfulness. The fans still felt sympathy for her, but a heavy cloud of disappointment was hanging right there alongside it. The audience found it nearly impossible to reconcile the Remy they had admired for years with the version of the woman now being charged with a massive breach of trust. To truly grasp why this collapse sent shockwaves through the community, you have to peer behind the curtain and look at the total landscape, not just the clickbait titles. In the high-stakes world of celebrity, romance exists under a microscopic lens. Fame takes every minor slip-up and blows it out of proportion. Personal space is a myth, and lies often outrun the truth before the sun even comes up. Yet even in the middle of all that madness, Remy and Papoose always seemed to be cut from a different cloth. Their narrative wasn't constructed on a foundation of red carpets or social media clout. It was forged in the fires of true loyalty, mutual hardships, and a very real sense of ride-or-die commitment. Their origin story traces back to 2004, thanks to a common link through DJ K-Slay. According to the way Papoose tells it, it was actually Remy who took the initiative. She reached out through their mutual friend and sent a clear signal that she was interested. That initial spark ignited something far deeper than a music collaboration. It set the stage for a romance that accelerated quickly and became incredibly intense early on. But the universe didn't exactly roll out the red carpet for them. Only a few short years into their journey, Remy Ma faced a lengthy prison sentence. For the average couple, that would have been the absolute end of the road. Typically, the combination of physical distance, mental strain, and the passage of years causes people to drift toward the exit. In their story, the opposite happened. Rather than cutting his losses and moving on, Papoose remained a constant fixture. He was there for every visitation, every expensive collect call, and every grueling month of her absence. They even went as far as planning a wedding while she was behind bars. While the actual ceremony faced a series of setbacks, delays, and logistical nightmares, the mere attempt proved to the world just how committed they were to one another. Over the following years, various scandals tried to dismantle their union more than once. Claims of infidelity popped up in the past, but every single time they presented a united front. Papoose was never shy about defending Remy's reputation, constantly reminding the public that the internet is a house of mirrors where the truth is often distorted. He stayed in the trenches, managed the household, and ensured their foundation remained rock solid while she was away. To the fans, that kind of unbreakable support felt like a rare gem, particularly within the hip-hop industry, where relationships usually crumble under the weight of the spotlight. When they eventually announced they were having a baby together, it felt like a victory lap, a sign that their love had cleared every hurdle. For many, that milestone represented a new chapter of peace and a future built on the wreckage they had already survived. It appeared to be the ultimate proof that their bond was impenetrable. However, life has a cruel way of testing you just when things feel most secure. As this current storm began to gather, the heat didn't dissipate, it reached a boiling point. Instead of the gossip blowing over, fresh and more detailed claims began to emerge. Tasha K dropped yet another bombshell video, stating that she had been contacted for a formal sit-down by Easy, the block captain himself. That development added a chaotic new dimension to an already tangled web. According to her account, the proposal for the interview came with a set of strings attached that immediately smelled fishy. The asking price was steep, allegedly sitting at $10,000. What made the situation even more bizarre was the demand that the interview be broadcast on Easy's own channels rather than hers. That specific detail didn't sit right with the veteran blogger. When she pushed him for more information, his story started to get shaky and full of holes. Instead of providing clarity, he seemed to start backpedaling on his original pitch. Every time he answered a question, it only created more doubt in the minds of the public. The confusion deepened when eagle-eyed fans noticed social media interactions that directly contradicted his claims of being a total stranger to the people contacting her. Those inconsistencies left everyone wondering what was actually happening in the shadows. As these layers were peeled back, the scrutiny on Remy Ma and Papoose became more intense than ever. A partnership that was once a source of inspiration turned into a 24/7 debate. Now the fans are dissecting every old clip, every cryptic caption, and every heavy moment of silence for a sign of what went wrong.
But listen to me. I know it's early, but it's an emergency. It's an emergency.
There have been rumors circulating that Remy Ma cheated allegedly on Papoose with another battle.
One specific instance that truly set tongues wagging was when Papoose showed up solo for the massive tribute to Busta Rhymes' legendary career. Remy was nowhere to be found, and in the world of celebrity gossip, that kind of absence resonates far more than a PR-cleansed press release. While Remy tried to sweep the whole thing under the rug by labeling it as nothing more than typical battle rap theatrics, the bridge had already been scorched. Leaked images that purportedly captured Remy and Easy in the same space only served to pour gasoline on the fire. By that stage, the whispers didn't feel like some far-off fairy tale anymore. What had previously been confined to the dark corners of comment sections and private group messages had fully emerged into the blinding light of the mainstream, shifting the energy from mere guessing to open hostility. We were no longer just looking at fuzzy photos or tips from sources close to the situation. This had evolved into something public, deeply emotional, and completely out of anyone's control. There was one precise moment that fundamentally altered the public's perspective, and it went down at a battle rap event that took a turn for the intense when nobody was prepared for it. During the heat of the battle, Easy the Block Captain grabbed the mic and pointed his lyrical artillery directly at Remy Ma. Now, Easy is famous for being blunt and having zero filter, but this wasn't just your standard performance. While personal jabs are the bread and butter of the battle rap world, this didn't come across as clever metaphors or lighthearted trash talk. It felt sharp, visceral, and incredibly intimate. He openly called out the fact that Papoose was missing in action and made heavy-handed suggestions about a double cross. The way he laid it out made the audience feel uncomfortable rather than hyped. You could feel the room change. The crowd stopped cheering for clever punchlines and started focusing on the raw tension in the air. What made that moment cut so deep was the decades of history behind the couple. Papoose had established a legacy as Remy's most ironclad defender. He was the one who stood in the gap when everyone else turned their backs on her. He screamed her name from the rooftops to clear her reputation when the world tried to drag her. For a rival to weaponize his absence on a public stage caused a collective gasp from the community. The focus wasn't on the lyricism anymore. It was all about the body language. Remy stood there taking it in, and she looked visibly shaken. She wasn't laughing it off like a seasoned pro or dismissing the bars as fiction. Her rigid posture and her facial expression communicated more than 1,000 words ever could. It became painfully obvious that something had snapped long before the camera started rolling that night, and the battle was simply the moment the mask fell off. As you can imagine, snippets from that night traveled across social media at the speed of light. Once again, every timeline was a battlefield of opinions. Some fans felt that Easy had gone way below the belt and crossed a sacred line. Others argued that he was simply saying the quiet part out loud, stating what everyone was already thinking in their heads. Regardless of whose side you took, the impact was permanent. The whole tone of the conversation changed overnight. Supporters who used to defend Remy without a second thought were suddenly raising their hands with questions. They weren't being hateful, just genuinely confused. Why wasn't Papoose there to back her up? Why had he retreated into total silence? And what was actually going on when the cameras were off? Why did he suddenly go completely dark on his end? That specific mystery began to dominate the discourse as the allegations became impossible to ignore. Remy Ma eventually tried to handle the fallout online, telling her followers to stop fueling what she categorized as lies regarding her and Easy. She attempted to frame the entire ordeal as just another day in the gritty world of battle rap, hinting that people were overanalyzing a situation that had no substance. But by that point, the genie was out of the bottle. She no longer had the power to shape the narrative with a single post. Another factor that kept the rumor mill spinning was Papoose continuing to hit the scene by himself. That appearance at the Busta Rhymes celebration without Remy by his side was the final straw for many. On a standard day, seeing a husband out without his wife wouldn't mean much. Couples have separate lives after all. But when you're in the middle of a Category 5 scandal, being MIA speaks much louder than any public statement ever could. The audience caught on immediately. Viral snapshots began to flood the timeline, and the comment sections were engulfed in a matter of minutes. Everyone pointed out the glaring reality. Remy was nowhere to be found. A few loyalists tried to come up with excuses, but for the majority, this was the smoking gun that proved things were falling apart behind the scenes. Then Tasha K stepped back into the arena. She leaked images that allegedly captured Remy and Easy together in a setting that looked far too cozy to be professional or accidental. But at that stage, whether the photos were harmless or not didn't even matter anymore. The court of public opinion had already reached a verdict. Every fresh detail felt like another brick added to a wall of chaos. When whispers started circulating about a physical altercation involving Easy and Papoose, nothing was officially verified, yet the mere thought of it sent tensions through the roof. People began to visualize heated confrontations and private wars spilling out into the real world. As the drama continued to spiral, a new perspective entered the chat. Charleston White, a man notorious for his unfiltered and polarizing takes, tackled the situation head-on. He didn't treat it like simple celebrity trash talk. Instead, he analyzed what the fallout represented on a cultural level, using Remy and Papoose as a case study for how modern unions disintegrate under the crushing weight of public scrutiny and industry pressure. The second Charleston White opened his mouth, the entire vibe of the conversation shifted. He didn't care about being polite or protecting a loyalty narrative. He stripped it down with his trademark bluntness, claiming that this is exactly what happens when a relationship is forced to exist for the cameras and the clout. To him, this wasn't some shocking tragedy. It was a predictable collision between massive egos, fame, and the pull of temptation, a cycle he believes repeats itself endlessly in the music business. Charleston made it clear that fans often romanticize these ride-or-die stories without ever considering the psychological toll they take. He argued that years of sticking by someone doesn't make you immune to burning out or making a massive mistake. In his view, long-term celebrity marriages usually start cracking in total silence long before the public smells smoke. By the time the fans start asking questions, the house is already on fire. That take made a lot of people uncomfortable, but it also forced many to nod in reluctant agreement. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't just about screenshots or battle rap bars anymore. It was a deeper debate about our own expectations. The world had placed Remy and Papoose on a pedestal as living proof that true loyalty always wins. When that image started to crumble, it felt like a personal betrayal to the people who had invested their hope in them. The internet stayed completely split. Some rushed to Remy's defense, suggesting that nearly 2 decades of emotional baggage can push anyone to a breaking point. Others felt a deep sense of disappointment, arguing that loyalty is only real if you stand firm when the road gets rocky. The comments were no longer lighthearted. They were heavy, raw, and intense. Meanwhile, the fact that Papoose remained completely silent only added to the mystery. His refusal to speak became louder than any tweet he could have sent. Fans began to overanalyze every single move, every public appearance, and every post, or lack thereof. Some believed he was simply choosing his peace, while others felt he was letting the truth speak for itself. Regardless, that lack of clarity kept the rumors alive and well. As the days turned into weeks, the story evolved from a single accusation into a timeline of red flags that people felt they had missed along the way. Old interviews were dug up and reposted. Song lyrics were reread as if they were secret messages. Past red carpet moments were scrutinized for signs of tension. Everything was being viewed through a brand new lens, and nothing felt like a coincidence anymore. At this point, it wasn't just a breakup story. It had become a cautionary tale and a reality check all at once. Whether you see it as a betrayal or just two people outgrowing their roles, one thing is undeniable: the illusion is gone. And once that mirror cracks, you can't glue it back together to look the same way it did before. According to Charleston White, Papoose did something most men in this industry would never dream of. He stayed loyal when it actually counted. He was there for Remy Ma every single year of her incarceration, showing a level of commitment that most would have abandoned for a fresh start. Charleston emphasized that this kind of sacrifice is incredibly rare and meant something real to him. It represented patience and a deep sacrificial love. That is why the thought of that legacy being tossed aside hit him so hard. He didn't sugarcoat his frustration, noting that watching something so solid fall apart felt wrong on every level. He also touched on the age gap between Remy and the much younger block captain, not just because of the years, but because of what it represented: impulsive desires replacing long-term history. To him, it was a moment where discipline was being defeated by ego, and that contrast is exactly why this story struck such a sensitive nerve with the world. As this saga continues to play out, one thing remains certain: this is bigger than leaked DMs or internet noise. What people are truly reacting to is the death of an ideal. For years, these two represented the ability to endure the ugliest parts of life together. Watching that image fracture in real time is uncomfortable and confusing for the fans. This isn't even about picking a side anymore. It's about the harsh collision between expectation and reality. Fame puts love under a microscope where every silence is magnified. What might have stayed a private matter in a normal life became a public circus here. Once the internet gets its hands on a narrative, it's like a freight train that's impossible to stop. At the same time, this mess has forced everyone to rethink the loyalty stories we cling to. A long history doesn't guarantee a happy ending, and years of sacrifice don't protect you from a bad decision. That's a hard pill to swallow, especially for fans who use this couple as proof that love could survive anything. Papoose's silence keeps the questions coming, and Remy's defense only fuels more fire. Silence is interpreted, and every word is dissected. At this stage, even a neutral moment feels loaded with meaning, because the trust has been shaken. What happens next? Nobody knows. Maybe we get more statements, or maybe they just fade into the background. But the image we all believed in has changed forever, and there is no rewind button for that. So, before you head out, make sure you smash that like button if you've been following this journey with us. Tap subscribe if you're a real one, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update on this situation.